Hi, I'm Amanda McKay. I'm a professional artist and I've been making these videos to give people creativity tips to help them become more creative versions of themselves. And these tips are meant for everybody regardless of your level of expertise. This tip actually is something that comes from professional athletes and Olympic athletes that I read about a long time ago, and that's a mental rehearsal. And I do think that this is something that can apply to creativity. So the mental rehearsal, these athletes, their bodies could only take so much actual physical rehearsal. So they found that if an athlete mentally rehearsed, and of course it was important for them to, in their mind, whatever, if they're a gymnast, they imagine doing their routine perfectly. If they're a sprinter, they imagine like perfectly coming off the blocks and sprinting ahead of everybody. So as long as they were imagining that they were doing it exactly how they needed to, it apparently was pretty effective, almost as effective as having an actual physical rehearsal, but then they weren't having to overwork their bodies. So I have actually used this myself for creativity and for my creative projects. And I'm predominantly an oil painter. And I usually paint from reference photos just because of the nature of the type of things that I paint. But I will imagine coming in, like if I'm starting on the painting, I imagine how I'm going to come in and just get in there right the first time. I'll think about the different things that I need to be aware of and where I might encounter some difficulty. If the painting is already in progress, then I can look at it and I can see like, oh, okay, here's what I need to do next. And it really does help me paint more efficiently and help me paint faster. Now, the reason that I'm including this as a creativity tip instead of just an art tip is that it can also have you help you have a flash of inspiration when you're mentally thinking about what it is that you're going to do when you're mentally rehearsing. And maybe that doesn't apply as much to paintings that I have in progress. If I'm imagining working on a painting in progress, sometimes I'll have a flash of inspiration and then I use that on the next painting. If I'm thinking about writing something and I'm imagining what I'm going to write about next, then and that's not my main form of creativity, but is something that I do work on from time to time. Again, I will just from mentally thinking about what I would say, what I would write about, I will often come up with a different idea to add into it, or sometimes a totally different idea. But when we're talking about creativity, everything is good. Whether it's adding to something that you're already working on or just something completely different. These are all things that are useful and they do come from this mental rehearsal. So try this. Just think about, maybe tomorrow it's a Saturday and you have a little bit of time to work on your project, maybe you're crocheting, and just find yourself just mentally going through the steps that you have to do, mentally rehearsing how it's going to happen. Maybe you're a photographer and you're going to go into nature to take some photos. Well, of course, mentally rehearsing will help you make sure that you don't forget anything that you need to take with you. But it can also just help you think about, okay, if there's something you want to look out for in specific that maybe you hadn't thought about until you were thinking of it in advance. And it can often be better to have just a little preparation for when you start on something like this. So it worked for the athletes. I think it works for me often as an artist, but mentally rehearse, give it a try. And I would like to know in the comments, has anybody done this before in a creative way? Or really, even if you've done it in the traditional sense of some kind of an athlete, maybe you're on some kind of a sports team, have you ever tried this? Has this worked for you? Or has it not worked? I would really love to have people's feedback on this and their comments, so just let me know. And I do hope that you found this tip to be useful. Again, my name is Amanda McKay, and thank you so much for watching.